Hey guys, the Superhero Bibliophiles episode you're about to listen to was originally part of the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club, an exclusive Patreon subscriber show I used to run a few years back. So if you're confused by out-of-date references or comments about the Patreon show, that's why. Now, enjoy the episode.
Hey guys, I just want to give you a quick update, and if any of you were wondering why there wasn't an episode last week, it's because, unfortunately, I was too busy to record one. And that led me to kind of reconsider the way I'm approaching these Patreon episodes. So what I think I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to be shooting for once a month to once or to twice a month for these Patreon episodes. I'm sorry that I can't offer them more frequently. It's just that with now two kids around and a bunch of other things that I've got going on with work, it's difficult to do more than that, at least until the subscriber base increases. So thanks for understanding and thanks for your support. And now here's the latest episode. Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club. I am your host, Perry Constantine, and as always, this is an exclusive show for the Patreon subscribers. And we've got our second guest on this companion podcast, and that is Edward Thompson. Eddie, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing good. So for those of you who are listening, the way this has worked out is that I actually have the episode to the main show recorded far in advance. So Eddie and I recorded an episode talking about the Ant-Man movie fairly recently, but you're not going to be hearing that until like September based on the schedule. But you are going to be hearing him talk today about the Astonishing Ant-Man Epic Collection, which is the complete collection, which is what we're talking about today. So before we jump into that, Eddie, because like I said, we're so far in advance, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself first?
Yeah. So let's see. I started reading comics sometime around 2014 next to my school's comic club.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that stuff because of the MCU was Marvel. So this was an early book for me. Let's see. Besides that, I also review movies, including the sequel to Ant-Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I do some 3D modeling and different kind of like collage artwork stuff with 3D models, and yeah, stuff like that.
Okay, cool. What comic was kind of your start into the world of comics then?
So I think, like mostly reading around that time, but then I do believe I picked up the Killing Joke around 2008, along with everyone else. So I think it was roughly when the movie started getting mainstream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, today we're talking about the Astonishing Ant-Man Complete Collection. So let me just give a quick rundown of the credits. The whole thing is written by Nick Spencer. Ramon Rosanas is pretty much the main artist. He did most of the art on this, and then we also had I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Brent Schoonover did a few fill-in issues, and then Anna Paola Martello did a few. Color artists were Jordan Boyd and Will Quintana. Letterer is VC's Travis Lanham. Cover art, most of it's done by Mark Brooks, which Mark Brooks's cover art is always beautiful to look at. Also, David Marquez and Justin Ponzer, David Nakayama, and Julian Totino Tedesco also did some of the cover art. And this is an interesting collection because this was around the time this series kind of it came out kind of at a weird time at Marvel because they had over in the Avengers books, Jonathan Hickman was leading up to his big Secret Wars event, and a lot of the book, and then after Secret Wars you had the you kind of like a soft relaunch of Marvel after that. It was like, I think it was called I think it was like All New Marvel or All, I can't remember exactly what the branding was at the time.
Hold on, I have it right here.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried to take some notes on this. So we went from Marvel Now to all new, all different.
Thank you. Yeah. So Marvel Now was the stuff that came right after Secret Wars, I believe. So this actually was split into two, even though it's basically the same comic, it's the same run. If you read the credits, it's split into two different runs. So it's Ant-Man from 2015, numbers 1 to 5, and the Ant-Man annual number 1, Ant-Man Last Days number 1. That was like the final issue before Secret Wars and the incursion stuff and the new battle world and all that kind of stuff that came after it. And then it got relaunched as Astonishing Ant-Man, and that lasted for a total of 13 issues following Secret Wars. So when you're reading this, and it's been collected into there are a few different volumes, but basically if you pick up the complete collection, you've got all the entire thing in one big collection, and it's definitely worth it. Just pick up the complete collection, I think.
Definitely agree. One thing I figured out today, actually, while I was just kind of going through everything, there's one more single issue to pick up. This Guardians team up with Scott and Drax, which was really funny.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's probably I think Guardians Team Up has its own trade, so you could probably find that over in that collection. Do you know if Spencer wrote that as well?
No, it was Paul Scheer. There was someone else with him.
Okay.
Which also explains why Paul is in the collection as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
So yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about this. What did you think of this collection, this run?
So it's really interesting because I remember it differently. I remember it being first of all, it's great, but I remember it being funnier. I remember certain moments differently. And I think what happened is because I was reading so much of these two things, Marvel Now and All New, All Different, like all at once, and they all had this very light, humorous tone. Everything blended together in a way. So I was dealing with that a little bit. But otherwise, the book is really great. It was more of a dramedy than I expected.
Yeah,
going into it the second time.
I really enjoyed it too, and this is also I think I don't know if I'd read the whole thing, but I think I'd read at least most of it when it was first coming out. So going back and being able to just kind of read it all the way through was really nice. Nick Spencer is I like Nick Spencer. I know he's gotten some flack online and like different fan communities, but I thought his cap work was okay. I didn't think it was terrible like a lot of people got freaked out over, but it wasn't also anything that was incredibly impressive to me either. It was decent enough. But I think where he really shines is with characters like this who have a little bit more of a humorous side, like his Amazing Spider-Man run. I really enjoyed that. His work on Superior Foes of Spider-Man with Boomerang and the rest of the Sinister Six, that was amazing. I think that's probably the best thing he's ever done. And this one really works towards his sensibilities as well. I think he's got a lot of cool ideas. He's got a really good handle on Scott as a character, and it feels like he's definitely pulling in some of the Paul Rudd influence from the movies, and I think it really, and he's able to do it in a way that really kind of works. Whereas sometimes when some creators try to pull in some of those movie personalities, like the obvious one is when they try to replicate Downey's persona when writing Iron Man, or when they try to replicate Chris Pratt's persona when writing Star-Lord, it falls flat a lot of the times, I feel. But I think they really managed. I think Spencer really managed to nail it. He pulls in just enough of Rudd to kind of enhance Scott's character without overdoing it.
That's because it's the same year. I was wondering how much of that must have been coincidence, because how close between the movie and like the books was that happening?
That's a good point. I think it could also have been, obviously he knew Rudd would be playing Ant-Man at the time, so I wonder how much of it too is just like based on Rudd's past performances, and I'm not sure. It may be completely coincidental, but I did feel like there was some definite Rudd influence on Scott compared to how I've read him before Rudd got connected to him.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I still haven't read any other stuff with Scott. I read one Hank book before jumping into this as a refresher,
Mm-hmm.
and I still have to read Eric, probably among others.
Oh yeah. I haven't read the Eric stuff yet. I've only seen him in the other books, like when he was with Thunderbolts, when he was part of the Secret Avengers. So I haven't read his solo series yet. But and Scott, I remember him because he was part of Heroes for Hire. He was part of Jeff Johns' Avengers run, and he's definitely a lighter Ant-Man than Hank Pym, but I don't remember him being quite as jocular, quite as quippy as he is in this. So I think that's why I think it's the Rudd influence that's being pulled in there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
What are some things that kind of jumped out to you when rereading this collection?
Let's see, things that jumped out. So, like, again, it's part of that remembering things differently. I had kind of different visuals in my mind that, for instance, do you remember that one scene? I think it's toward the end of the whole thing, where you see him, I think, in bed with Beetle with his helmet still on.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that being more of a default look for some reason.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was really funny. I thought Tony was in it a little bit more after Scott had to ditch him for Miami.
Oh, okay.
Like one more scene, like confronting Scott on owning up to his stuff, which actually would have been really interesting.
I think there might have been, because I'm not sure how much of this stuff ended up being well planned out in advance, how much stuff ended up getting shuffled around because of Secret Wars. But I do know that based on Tony's persona and the helmet design here, it looks like this was from the Superior Iron Man era that Tony was in, when he had his personality inverted and he was basically a selfish dick. And I'd covered the Superior Iron Man run that Tom Taylor did in a previous episode, so people can double check that. But yeah, it does seem like there was maybe some more stuff planned for Tony. I wonder how much of that maybe got kind of shifted away because of Secret Wars coming up and all that kind of thing. I'm not quite sure how well Marvel had done the rollout, because a lot of books, there were books that were launched, like Ant-Man. Spider-Gwen was another one that got launched and then had to be relaunched within like a few issues. So it was kind of a weird time. I think there's some weird, I'm not quite sure how Marvel didn't seem to have planned the rollout of these different titles as well as they could have.
Yeah, I think I remember for Squirrel Girl, they put something acknowledging that, like, first free launch in a few months or whatever.
Yeah.
Right on the cover. But like, the thing is, the book itself is really well planned. It does have a really good finale that it is building toward. Actually, you could say throughout the whole thing, with how all the different people he's fighting do come together. So I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, that's something that Spencer does pretty well. I think he does it. I think it works better when he's not having to do it for a whole line-wide event like he had to do with the Secret Empire. But I think what he did, like he was able to do that here. He was able to do that with Amazing Spider-Man. He was able to do that with Superior Foes. It's a really good, he's able to really, he's good at planning stuff out in advance, or at least making it look like he planned stuff out in advance.
Mm-hmm. And then, you
sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna say, well, I'm probably gonna jump around quite a bit. Like, stuff that stood out to me was like hench and lackey and how all that stuff was used.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, because this was around the time, and this is a weird comparison that I make. It was around the time where Cartoon Network was getting really good at incorporating stuff like social media and like online into a lot of their shows, a lot of their characters. So seeing it also in these Marvel books really stuck out.
Yeah, and that's another thing. That was another thing I wanted to touch on too. I'm glad you mentioned that, because Spencer's really good at pulling in those things and finding like these little twists on things and these like little modern twists. And I think the the apps was a really good way of doing that. Hench and lackey, like, you know, basically crowdsourcing henchmen and supervillains. That was made a lot of sense, and I thought that was really well done. So yeah, I love that aspect of it. I love pulling in the real world comparisons to Uber and Lyft and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so much of it, because the story is still very much just on Scott, very much set in New York and Miami. Like, it is stuff that they could easily put into the movies,
Mm-hmm.
which I think would be a lot of fun.
Well, something else that they do really well is, and this is something that Spencer does pretty well too, is he's able to work in continuity pretty seamlessly, because I haven't read any of the original Scott Lang stories, like when he first went up against Darren Cross. I never read those stories, but I never felt lost reading all this. And he references that stuff a lot, but I never felt like he was either being too heavy-handed with exposition or throwing in too many obscure references. I thought he found a really good balance between those two.
Yeah, actually, like, everything I was reading around this time was pretty much really good with that.
Mm-hmm. And he's also done that with his other stuff, like Superior Foes had a lot of that too. His Captain America run had a lot of that too, referencing different things that happened in the past. And Spider-Man, he'd even cleaned up some stuff when he did Spider-Man, so that was pretty impressive when he cleaned up the Sins Past stuff. I also thought the uses of shrinking were pretty creative here. Like, you know, Scott Lang basically living out of a toy dollhouse, or having Hank's lab inside the Ant-Man helmet, or even you know, using a phone as a big screen TV when you shrink down. All this was like these really unique and creative ways to use the shrinking abilities.
Yeah, using it for a free flight for Miami. I mean, can't beat that. What did you think of the action in the book?
I liked it. I thought it was a nice balance, and it kept it moving pretty well. Other thing too is I think that the art is really good. It's like this. It's a little bit of a. It's not an overly detailed style. It's kind of a bit more of a simplistic. I don't want to go as far as to say cartoony, but it's a very clean style that really kind of suits itself. It works really well with the action. It works really well with the drama and the comedy. Yeah, Rosanos is a great artist. I think he was a wonderful choice. I think that was Rosanos, right? Yeah, Rosanas. So he was a great choice for this artist. I thought he did a great job and stayed on for most of it too. I also, even the fill-in artists didn't distract me or anything, so I thought they were a pretty good match for that.
Yeah, I've only run into that with a fill-in artist issue once noticeably on a couple of Venom books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it used to. Marvel's gotten a lot better about that. It used to be much more dramatic. Like if you ever read Grant Morrison's X-Men run, there were some pretty dramatic shifts in with fill-in artists there. But they really seem to have found a good balance here. And what do you think overall of Scott's kind of character journey in this book?
I thought it was really well done. It kind of is reminiscent of to a much lesser extent, like see some BoJack Horseman in there, the Scott of the movie, stuff like that. You know, just the well-intentioned, try and do better, always backsliding.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was, you know, really well done.
Yeah, at times I felt like maybe they went a little bit too far into the backsliding, but overall I thought it was well done. I was less impressed with, and again, I'm drawing these comparisons to the movies, but, and I'm forgetting her name right now. Peggy, I think is his ex-wife's name.
Yeah, I have that in my notes.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Fixed it. Well, they acknowledged that at the end, which I thought was nice. But yeah, I had the same thought.
Yeah, that's one of the things, and I'm not sure how much of that is based on how she was written previously, because I know in John's Avengers run, she was basically trying to get Scott completely stripped of custody. So And we also have not the same guy from the movies, Paxton. They ended up changing up his name for the movies, but basically the same idea, right? The new husband who's a cop. Although here he's much more antagonistic, where both of them are. And I thought that was something I liked about, like, you know, when people hear this, they'll hear me talk about this, that I liked about the movies is that they have a lot more of a mature relationship in the movies, and it's not just, you know, the ex-wife and her asshole new husband, you know, trying to make stuff bad for the hero. And I feel like at times Spencer leans a little bit too heavily into that trope.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that helps is they justify it with Cassie being in really serious danger
Mm-hmm.
and actually losing her for, you know, I haven't read whatever happened previously that they were always acknowledging, but
So yeah, that
her.
was so she was part of the Young Avengers before this, and she was a member and during there was a limited series called Avengers: The Children's Crusade, and I believe she had died in that. And then later on in the FF title, I think that was when I think that was during All New Marvel. And then Scott, and that was also Ms. Thing and She-Hulk and Medusa. They were part of the Future Foundation. And I haven't read that run, but that's apparently when she got resurrected.
Miss Thing, is that Darla in this book?
Oh. Yeah. So that's another reference. Like they brought her in here, and I thought, and again, just great use of continuity without being too difficult to follow. It proved to be really easy to understand. Even though I'd never read the FF book, I thought it was really easy to figure out what was going on.
Mm-hmm. But let's see, going back to Peggy, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to add with her. Like, actually, no, I'm not sure there's anything else, at least for right now.
Yeah, but I thought too, like his whole staying out of Cassie's life thing, that was one of those things where it felt like I can understand kind of the reasoning to it, but I think they were leaning a little bit too heavily into that as an idea. And I feel like it was and I know, you know, Scott basically ends up paying for this later on. He kind of, you know, realizes that he was mistaken, but still, I think even rereading this, even knowing that was coming, I still kind of felt like this seems like an extreme reaction, like to just ditch your daughter and completely. And I'm looking at it from, you know, rereading this now as a father myself, I'm just thinking about it from that perspective. Like, even if I felt I was bad for my daughter, I don't think I would just completely ditch her without any explanation. I think that's taking things way too far.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, because my comparison is very much like any, like, you know, the Mary Jane type situations instead of the, you know, the father-daughter type thing. I mean, that's the only comparison I have to make. But I thought more like Cassie's reaction was a little overdone when she found out.
Yeah, that kind of. But I understood her reaction a little bit more just because Scott was, you know, it was just such a weird choice for him to make. So in a way, I kind of understood her reaction a little bit more than I did his reasoning for doing it. But you are right. I think that overall that aspect of it, in an otherwise book with great character work, that was some really clunky characterization, I felt.
Yeah. I guess it's just one of those things that's just a tightrope.
Yeah, I think that's one of those cases where you need this, the plot needs this to happen, and you're trying to twist the characters to make it happen, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, stuff like her joining Hench, which was a little extreme.
I mean, partly I understood that because she was doing that to try to get revenge on Cross. She was trying to get superpowers back. So I think, but again, I think we could have had a little bit more lead up to that. Like I did like the issue where she teams up with Kate Bishop again, and they kind of have their little girls' night out. I thought that was fun, and that worked a little bit to establish why she would do this. but yeah, it is a little bit weird. Although I do like that this new identity they gave her, because this is another continuity pull. Back in the, I think it was like the late 90s, early 2000s, Marvel had done, actually may have just been late 90s. Marvel had launched a line of books called MC2, which started with Spider-Girl, the daughter of Peter and Mary Jane Parker, and then they had expanded that into J2, Juggernaut's son of Juggernaut, and A-Next, the next generation of Avengers, and you also had Wild Thing, who was Wolverine's daughter before X-23, and American Dream, who was basically kind of like the daughter of Captain America, I think. And in the A-Next book, you had Cassie picking up Scott's legacy and using the identity of Stinger, and they brought that back here. So I thought that, even though I wasn't a big MC2 fan, but I did think that was a cool little continuity deep cut.
Yeah, I was wondering, because I thought that she has multiple names as well, right?
Before this, she was Stature on the Young Avengers.
That's
I
the
don't
one I
know.
remember.
Yeah. I don't know if she's ever had any other identities in other alternate universes besides that, but yeah, that was a nice little pull, and I'm glad that they kept that too, because she seems to continue on with that identity after this.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, because I am also wondering, like, where the book goes from here.
Mm-hmm. So there. I mean, I haven't read the books that come after, but there is a, and I actually picked it up with, they had a recent Ant-Man sale. Just try and find it here. So there was another Ant-Man and the Wasp series, which featured Scott, but it had Nadia Pym, Hank Pym's daughter, in that. And then there's also another Ant-Man title that it looks like Zeb Wells is doing. I'm not sure if he's still doing it. I'm not sure if it's still ongoing or not, but that has I'm just looking at the cover, but the first book is World Hive, and it's got Stinger on the cover. So it looks like they at least keep it on going through that. Now, I haven't read either of these books yet, so I'm not sure how good they are, but it looks like they are continuing some stuff at least.
That's good to hear.
One thing too, they also redesigned Scott's costume for this. Like pretty much for years, he had just been using Hank Pym's original costume, and then he had kind of during Jeff Johns' Avengers, he had gotten a more modernized costume with like a full face helmet, and it was probably more reminiscent of the movie costume. I think the movie costume was definitely inspired by this look, but it was basically an all black suit with kind of like the Ant-Man symbol on the front. And then for this, they had redesigned it again. They brought back the open mouth helmet. They had made, what do you think of this design for the new costume?
Yeah, I think the open mouth helmet is generally the way to go, at least for comics.
Mm-hmm.
For the reason I mentioned earlier, it just kind of sticks out like comedically, and just kind of in general, you get more expression out of it. And yeah, I prefer that.
I mean, I really liked the closed helmet look from Avengers, but I will say that so if you had asked me before I read this series, I would have said I preferred the closed helmet. But after reading this, I think for Scott especially, the open mouth helmet definitely works better. I think if you're doing a more serious or a darker take on Ant-Man, then the closed helmet would definitely work. But for Scott, it definitely works better with the open mouth helmet. It helps humanize him a little bit more. It helps kind of convey the sense of humor a little bit better than as opposed to the closed helmet.
Yeah, it is a bit surprising they don't do that for the movies.
Sorry, say it again. I didn't quite catch that.
Oh, it's a bit surprising they don't do that for the movies.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's a good question. I never really thought about that, because usually you would need that more expression, because in comics you can fake it, right? You can have the helmet act in ways that a real mask can't do. But so it is kind of interesting. But I mean, then again, he takes the helmet off so much, and he doesn't really. So I guess that's how they justify
the action a little. For me, like the art itself is great, but I do think the action just might be just a hard character to capture action
Mhm.
wise. I was wondering what your thoughts on like fight scenes specifically.
Um, I thought they were really well done. I thought that they did a really good job of finding different ways to use the shrinking powers. Um, I can't think of any specific examples, but there was nothing that kind of stood out to me as like, oh, that's ridiculous or anything like that. Overall, I thought the action would worked really well. I like this one page. I'm just as I'm flipping through on my Kindle actually. This is on page 92 where they've got the bullets bursting kind of through the breaking the panel borders and Scott's just kind of jumping around. There's a real kinetic feel to this scene in particular.
Do you know what issue that is? How which numbers on
It's location 91 92 on the Kindle, but it is this would be Ant-Man number 4.
Let me see if I can find it real quick.
This is when Darren Cross is when they kidnap when Augustine Cross kidnaps him and they enlist Machine Smith and Grizzly for it's the one with the Miami Vice style cover.
Oh, that cover is the main thing that has stuck with me for years.
Mm-hmm.
I love that thing. Let's see, almost there.
Oh, found it.
Got it.
So yeah, I thought that was a really good example of using the shrinking powers and also just like a really kinetic use of artwork.
Yeah, I think what it is it might be a bit few and far between. The stuff that stuck out to me a lot was anytime they used light and shadow along with the shrinking powers.
Okay, I didn't really notice that too much. Do you have any examples that kind of stood out to you for that?
Nothing I can find. I know it was once or twice it showed up, but I can't think of specifically where it is. And I know it was also the other thing I'm going off of is I read, I think it's a Hank book. 1 second.
Okay.
It was Astonishing Origins, which I read right before this.
Okay.
Yeah. And that had some really solid action in it.
Okay. Yeah, I never read that, so I'm just comparing this cold. But so what we get here, I was satisfied with the action in here. I like the use of the heist aspect, how they had worked that into it at the end as well, bringing in these different villains, these low rent villains basically, and there are some nice little call outs to some of Spencer's other work. So we had Beetle obviously was a big player in Superior Foes, and the hijacker or his abilities, I think that they came from Overdrive, who's also part of the Superior Foes run. I'm not sure if the voice and the magician, again, that's a nice little deep cut, bringing in this son of this obscure Ant-Man villain. The voice, I'm not sure if there's anything about him in the past, but I just like that scene when they're all meeting with the magician for the first time and they're just kind of like talking to him about showing him the ropes. I love that. I thought that I love that idea of like supervillains just kind of bantering about which kind of villains you want to work with, which kind of villains you want to avoid. I thought that was I love that kind of stuff, seeing how they interact when they're not fighting superheroes.
What definitely stuck out was that avoiding Punisher, avoiding Daredevil. Spider-Man's not too bad, he'll just kind of annoy you.
I did like that. I thought that was really cute with Shane. Like, hey, if you laugh at his jokes, he'll just he'll web you up and leave you alone. But if you go into Hell's Kitchen, Daredevil's going to beat the crap out of you. And then if you see the Punisher, just fucking run.
So good.
But also, the idea of stay out of New York basically, and all this kind of stuff. I thought that was because it makes so much sense. If you're a supervillain, if you're an upcoming supervillain, why the hell would you stay in New York?
Yeah. Well, it is beautiful.
Maybe, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was great. And I think that's where this book, I think, shines more than anything else, is the dialogue. Nick Spencer is amazingly good at dialogue.
Yeah, anything with yeah, I'd say anything with like a group of three characters too, it doesn't snap as much, but then the scene that we just mentioned, like, it's excellent.
Mhm.
And then
Go
and then
ahead.
the other thing with the scene you mentioned is that they were also going to extort him for some money.
Right. Yeah. They were all going to steal his cut, basically.
And he was cheating during the game.
Yeah. Overall, it's a fun collection. I really enjoyed going back through and rereading this and seeing how it concluded, because I don't think I'd ever read the conclusion until this. Now, obviously, this is definitely influenced by the movie when they brought in the Yellow Jacket armor for Darren Cross at the end. What did you think of that?
Hold on, let me find that again. Just need to look at it. Well, it looks excellent. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really well done. Actually, trying to think. Actually, what do you think of the? I know we definitely went over this. What do you think of it? How it translated in the movie?
The Yellow Jacket armor?
Yeah.
Well, I think that at this point in the comic, I think the movie had already come out, so I think it's the opposite. They translated it from the movie to the comic. So based on that, like, I think it's a nice adaptation of the armor, but it did kind of feel like it came right at the end of the run. It did have a feeling of, the movie did this, so now we're going to do this in the comic. I think that it felt a little bit forced in that aspect. Like, that was obviously an aspect of something that maybe Spencer had a different planned conclusion at first, or also it could have just been because the book may have been canceled. I don't think it came necessarily to an organic end, and he had just had to kind of wrap some stuff up. So yeah, I mean, while I mentioned when we talked about Ant-Man that the armor is something that I think is a good thing to put in the comics, but I'm not so sure they handled it the best in this run.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I pretty much just reading through the book, I kind of took Yellow Jacket completely out of it when just looking across, especially like with his son, different mannerisms, so much of that. So it definitely does feel like a jump to get to where we go.
Yeah, definitely. And those are kind of some of the main things that I wanted to mention. How about you? Anything else that we didn't talk about so far you wanted to talk about?
Let me think. Yeah, I'm trying to think how to work it in. The Last Days issue, I thought was really interesting. All the stuff with Morgenstern and that retirement home, because it was like Marvel's version of something like Kingdom Come, or I'm trying to think. There's another one. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That was an interesting thing. I don't know, and it was okay, but overall, I did feel like it was just kind of, it felt a little disconnected from the rest of the story, although it was nice to see what was going on with Morgenstern altogether. But most of it didn't stand out to me. Like, I think that issue I just kind of like glossed over more than anything else.
Yeah. Oh, Watchmen is the other one I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. With the Minutemen stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, because it was like this extra title, like not in the main numbering, I mean, I did kind of separate it out while reading it. So I just took it kind of that like face value. It's nice to see like a light version of this that DC either can't or won't do.
No, I think DC has definitely had stuff like that too. If you look at some of like the Justice Society stuff that Jeff Johns has done, I think there's a lot of that kind of stuff in there. Or Stargirl was another example. But yeah, I just feel Ant-Man just felt like a weird choice for that, and so it didn't quite. I mean, I did like the stuff with this is when him and Beetle kind of begin their relationship. And I did kind of like the whole thing about how Beetle's ultimate motivation is she just wants the Pym tech for herself because she's the only insect themed character who doesn't shrink.
It's a fair reasoning.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, what did you think of the new Giant Man?
Oh, I thought he was really great. I loved the training and how he kind of just came about it just by being I guess Steve Rogers S is the closest comparison, just how he just one selfless act made all the difference.
Right. Yeah, I thought he was okay. Something about the design though, I think having a goatee with a mask is just begging for someone to uncover your identity.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And
go ahead.
The other odd thing is how they kind of put him front and center in the back of the book when he's only in so much of it.
Yeah, I guess that's just because it's just such a dynamic painting by Mark Brooks. They felt that they should put it in. And also in the back of the, I'm not sure if you have this in your version, but in my complete collection, they've also got all the variant covers at the back. And there's some really nice ones here too. Like I love there's this one for Ant-Man #1 by Chris Samnee where he's basically, it's very reminiscent to one of the movie posters where he's riding on a flying ant and the bullets are flying at him. Seeing about any other ones that really kind of stand out.
I think they're not all in the back. I think all the Astonishing ones are in the back, and then all the first run ones are after the first run.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, for me, all the variant covers are in the back. So there's some nice ones in there. It's some great art. Got a Civil War variant even too. But overall, I think the Mark Brooks covers here are just, I mean, like Mark Brooks is one of the best cover artists Marvel's got. So anytime you can see his work in something, it's always good. It's always a treat.
Yeah, I actually have an idea for a variant cover that I'm going to try to put out along with, I guess, post with this episode or post with the main feed one when I put it on my blog. I'll also send it to you. So I'm actually started putting that together yesterday.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, looking forward to seeing that. But other than that, I think that's pretty much that's everything I had to say about Astonishing Ant-Man. Anything else that we didn't cover that you want to mention?
Trying to think. Just going back to crap, I can't remember his name. The other going back to Giant Man, I did think that training montage was really well done with the toy set.
Yeah,
just, another really great of use of his powers, their powers.
Absolutely, yeah. The training, all the different uses of the powers are good. I liked bringing in Grizzly and Machine Smith as kind of like his sidekicks / employees. So, although I'm kind of surprised that with, and I'm not sure, maybe they've done this in other series, that they haven't brought in any of the other characters from the movies yet. But maybe that's something that will happen in one of the later books or has already happened.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's a good point. And also vice versa, because we haven't seen Machine Smith, Grizz, any of them yet.
Right. I mean, I think part of that is just, I think it might be a little bit difficult to do the reverse just because of one of the reasons that those characters work so well is because they've got some history. They're these low-level supervillains that got their asses kicked a bunch of times. So I think it might be a little bit harder to do that in the movies, to just bring them in cold without having some kind of backstory for them. So I'm not sure if they'd be able to work it as well.
Fair. Yeah, they could probably just do it as also, yeah, it would just have to be like a quick fight scene, like a first 15 minutes or whatever, probably just for fun or whatever.
Also, I think some of the visuals don't work as well in film as they do in comics. Like in comics, you can have a guy wearing a grizzly suit all the time, and it's comics. But I think if you did that in the movies, it would kind of stretch credulity a little bit too much.
Oh yeah, no, Grizz would be the hardest sell. Others less so.
Yeah. Speaking of, I did like how in the heist scene they're all basically still wearing their supervillain costumes under their security guard outfits.
Yeah. And then what else? Like I do think they could bring in the magician, especially because they've also established Scott as a magician.
That would be interesting. You're right. I completely forgot about that, but that would be an interesting little thing to do. And maybe they will. Maybe we'll see him in Quantum Mania. I don't know. But anyway, I think that's everything I have to say about Astonishing Ant-Man. It's definitely worth a read. It's and you want to get the complete collection. It's got everything in just one nice volume, so you don't have to worry about. I know there are a bunch of single trades too out there, but the complete collection is definitely worth it.
Absolutely.
Okay, Eddie, you want to tell people, tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm at whywewatch.com. There's a dash between each word, and on the top and bottom of the site is all my socials, and you're good.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on to talk about Astonishing Ant-Man. And that does it for this episode of the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club. Thanks as always for your support. And if you have any comments or suggestions or anything like that, please go ahead and leave a comment or send me an email. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.